Hi, John with Faith Generation here. Welcome, and I'm glad you joined us today for Video Church. When I was younger in high school, I played football for our team. The school I went to was called Tantasqua, and the team was called the Warriors, so I was part of the Tantasqua Warriors. And I had a great time. I loved playing football. And one day before a game, as normal, we were all warming up. So we did our stretching exercises, we got ready, we're all suited up, and then before the game started, we just started running some patterns. We'd throw the football, we'd get ready for the game. And in one particular moment, before the game started, I ran a route and I turned to catch the ball. And I was wearing my pads on my hands because I played defense and offense. But at this moment, I was kind of playing the wide receiver role. And as I turned to catch the ball, it hit my hand and it bounced off with a thump. And I'm like, wow, that was strange, So I look down and I can't see anything. So I pull off my pad and then I notice my finger is bent at a right angle in a way it shouldn't be bent, okay? It had just like snapped to the side. And I was like, oh, that can't be good. I went to the sideline and the coach was like, well, we can't do anything about it now, so you're just gonna have to sit here. And I sat through the whole game on the sideline with my finger just sticking out to the side. But eventually I made it to the hospital and they looked at it and they told me I had torn the ligament and that I needed surgery. So I went to surgery. And after the surgery, what they did for my arm in particular is they didn't put me out, but they put my arm out. So they kind of put like a tourniquet here. They put your whole arm to sleep. They inject it, with like some whatever it is that numbs it. And so my arm is totally numb. They did the surgery. And then after the surgery was over, the nurse is wheeling me down the hallway. I'm on the gurney and laying there, and she's taking me to the recovery room. And then she says to me, listen, people do this all the time, so please don't do it. Don't lift your hand. You think you can lift your hand, but you can't because it's numb. You can't move your muscles. You won't be able to. So I'm kind of laying there, and then, as I'm laying there, she's like here in front of me, and I'm like, she can't see me, her back's to me, and I'm thinking, I bet I can do this. I'm like, I know no one else on this planet can do it, but I probably can do it, I'm thinking, right? So I decide I'm just going to look at my hand. I kind of lift it up like this, and I try to control it, and I let it go, and it goes right and smacks me right in the face. I quickly grab my arm, put it back down to my side, and look up glance to see if she had saw me. I don't know if she did. Maybe there was a smirk on her face. I don't know. And so I was just thinking, man, in that moment, that was kind of dumb of me, right? Have you ever thought to yourself, that was kind of dumb of me? I kind of made a mistake. I mean, honestly, I thought that more times than I probably can remember in my life. I've done so many things that I've regretted. Some were just bad choices. Others were just decisions I made knowing that there was possible consequences, and I just decided, well, I'm going to take my chances. And I bet we've all done that at some time or another. Maybe we've overpaid for something that we knew we really wanted, but we decided to do it anyway, and later we were like, well, I wish I hadn't done that. Or we went out with some friends, or we went along with the friends, even though we knew it was wrong to do. We decided because they were all doing it as a group, oh, I'll just do it too and hope for the best. Or maybe we've crossed a line some way or another in the moment, the rush of the moment, the excitement, the adrenaline, whatever it is, and we went farther than we should have gone, and we just like, oh man. Some of us have stories that we could tell, like crazier stories than I just told you. And there's others here who have stories maybe that we're like, well, I'd be too ashamed to tell them, or maybe I'm too embarrassed to tell those stories. I mean, I have a few of those that I wouldn't share with you too. And those are the things that we've done in life. And if you think about it, the decisions that we've made, they've kind of decide how our life has turned out. The sum of our decisions are really what our lives are. And so we could probably trace each good or bad thing in our life back to a decision that we made. And that decision could have been we knew what we were doing, or it could have been kind of in ignorance. But some of us are thinking right now, maybe there are a few decisions I wish I could take back. I know that's for me. But what if we could make better decisions in life? So going forward, we didn't have to suffer the consequences of some of those things. What if we could avoid the mistakes that we keep making? Maybe we would have a better outcome. We'd have a better life. What if we could discover the right way to live? And that's what we're talking about today. And we're in the series, The Meaning of Everything, which is a study of the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, it was written about 3,000 years ago, and the author was a guy named King Solomon. And at the time, Solomon was one of the wisest and richest men that walked the earth. And he was on this quest to discover the meaning of life, its purpose. And so for the first half of the book that we've been reading, Solomon tells us of all the things that he's tried to figure out what the meaning of life was. I mean, you name it, he's probably tried it. He's tried pleasure, he's tried wealth, he's tried relationship, he's tried fame, he's tried power, he's tried hobbies, he's tried drugs and alcohol, he's tried everything that he could possibly try. And he didn't just attempt some of these things, like maybe you and I might try something. No, he submerged himself in these things because he could. It said that he was the richest man and most renowned man on the earth at that time. In fact, people from all over the world would just come to Jerusalem in Israel just to hear of his wisdom and to see the splendor of his kingdom. That's how great he was. And so he had the opportunity to take every single path he took to the extreme. And so he's tried all these things, and he comes up, he can't figure out the meaning of life. And in last chapter, chapter 7, because we're in chapter 8 today, it kind of took a turn. He stopped trying all his experiments to figure out the meaning of life, and instead, he started to tell us what he's learned. And he's exhausted this experimentation at this point, and now he's trying to tell us the things that he's learned. He's giving us the keys to the right way to live. And so it starts this way in chapter 8, verse 1. How wonderful to be wise and to analyze and interpret things. Wisdom lights up a person's face, softening its harshness. Obey the king, since you vowed to God that you would. Don't try to avoid doing your duty, and don't stand with those who plot evil, for the king can do whatever he wants. His command is backed by great power. No one can resist or question it. Those who obey him will not be punished. Those who are wise will find a time and a way to do what is right. Part of his conclusion in this chapter can be kind of summed up in this way. If you are wise, you'll do what's right. I know that sounds kind of like a threat, kind of like if you're wise, you'll do what's right, huh? Right? And it's kind of really the way he sums it up, because he's saying if you're wise, you're going to obey the king. Why? Because he has power and he has the authority to punish you. You see, if you do wrong, you're going to get in trouble. And so the wise man recognizes this absolute authority that the king has, and the wise man obeys the king to avoid his wrath. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. That's a big family. That's 5 kids. And when we were really little, and you can imagine what a handful we probably were for our parents, especially at bedtime. I mean, it was like chaos at that moment. 5 little kids trying to get them all to bed and keep them there. And so one night, I'll never forget this, our parents kept telling us to go to bed. And we all slept in this same one big room, and bunk beds and beds all over the room, and we slept there. And they told us to go to bed. They said goodnight. They'd left the room. And I decided that night, I was just having too much fun, that I would get up and I would sneak over to my brother's bed or my sister's bed, and I would just scare them. And of course, they would scream and yell, and they would be laughing for a while, and then I'd hear a yell from the living room, and I'd run back to my bed. Well, I just kept doing this because I was just having too much fun. Until one time I walked up to one of my brother's beds, and I went, surprise or whatever, and I didn't get the reaction I thought I was going to get. In fact, I felt this smack on my butt. And I turned around, I thought it was one of my other brothers. I'm like, hey, and I looked up at the bunk bed. What are you doing? And I still hadn't noticed until I turned fully around that there was my dad standing there in front of me. All I can say is that night I had to sleep on my side, okay? Because it hurt that much. We all know the wisdom in submitting to authority, right? We don't have a king over us, but we do have authority and rules. And in this world, if you don't obey, we are subject, and we don't obey them, then we're subject to punishment. A wise person keeps the law. A wise person does what a teacher tells them. A wise child listens to their parents so that they'll stay out of trouble. Now, the Apostle Paul made this really interesting observation about one of the commandments, one of the 10 commandments. He says this as he's writing to this church in Ephesus. He says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for it is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth." Here, the Apostle Paul tells us that this one commandment to obey our parents, which is the 5th commandment of the 10 commandments, he says this is the only one that comes with a promise. It's an interesting thing because it doesn't even seem to fit among the top 10 when you think about it, right? Here's the top 10 wrong things you can do. Not obey your parents. You're like, well, really? Because like when you lie, I see that because we hurt somebody. When you steal, someone suffers loss. That kind of makes sense to me. But what's the problem if we don't do what our parents say? I mean, come on. Sometimes our parents aren't even that smart. Maybe they don't always make the right decision. So obeying them, how can this be one of the top 10? But it's through this commandment that God is teaching us to obey. If we can't obey our parents, if we can't obey the authorities of this world, how are we going to obey God? I mean, think about that for a moment. God is teaching us to do what's right. If you want to be blessed and avoid punishment, then do what's right. This commandment exists so that it would be ingrained in us to do what's right. In those formative years of our lives, that we would learn this to be automatic, that it would just be something that we automatically go to. It would just be instinct to choose the right path. He's teaching us from an early age because it won't be easy. It won't be easy every single time to do the right thing. And that's what the next point Solomon brings up. He says this, because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times and his days are prolonged, yet I surely know that it will be well with those who fear God, who fear before him. But it will not be well with the wicked, nor will he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he does not fear before God. Solomon observes something that can be very frustrating for you and me, and that's this: that people in this world sometimes do bad things, and they get away with it, right? They gain wealth through cheating. They hurt other people to get their way. They lie to get ahead, and they don't have any consequences. It just seems to work for them. And he says, look, sometimes somebody does something wrong, and we don't see anything happen. And so you know what? It makes us want to do the same thing. Solomon notes that this is a tendency that you and I have. We all like shortcuts. And we see someone getting a shortcut and it working out, then we want to do it too. God hasn't called us, though, to be like everybody else. Or to put it another way, do what is just, not what you can justify. Do what is just, not what you can justify. The delay and punishment of the wicked entices men to follow that same path. And it happens. We see it in this world all the time. And when we see others doing wrong, but nothing happens, we tend to wonder, what's the point? I mean, if there's no consequences, then why shouldn't we do it? In elementary school, one day in physical education, I mean, I was super young. All of us were probably about 7. I was probably in second grade, somewhere around there. I don't even remember. But I remember we're in the gymnasium, and the instructor says, okay, everybody, I want you to now start walking in a clockwise direction around the gym. And so all these kids, it must have been like 30 of us, we just started going and figuring out, okay, which way is clockwise? 2 groups broke off. One started going one way, one started going the other. And every time we would pass, one group was larger than the other. And I happened to be in the smaller group. And so every time we would pass the bigger group, a few more kids would just kind of start going the other way because it was a bigger group, and they're thinking, no, they must be right. And after a while, I kept feeling a little bit funny about it. I'm like, maybe I'm wrong, questioning everything. So you know what? Eventually, I joined the big group too. We kept walking around in a circle until finally, even the last kid, and you can see there was frustration on their face. They didn't want to do it, but they decided that they were going to go in the direction with the big group too. And so when all of us were finally walking in one direction, the gym teacher said, okay, everybody stop. Okay, you're all walking in the wrong direction. Like, it was so easy to walk in the wrong direction. Though all of us decided to walk in a direction we thought was clockwise, it really didn't matter, right? It didn't matter that we all got in that same direction. We were going counterclockwise. It didn't matter. It didn't change what's clockwise. It didn't change it. I don't know who invented the clock, okay? But that person came up with the direction by which a clock turns. For whatever reason, he picked that way. He said, this is the way it's going to be, and that's the standard by which we measure rotation. I mean, if you look in the toilet and you flush it, you go, hey, that's flushing clockwise. Why? Because the clock turns in that direction. Unless you're south of the equator, okay? Then it turns in the opposite direction. Why? Because someone who created the clock decided what direction it will go. You know, it's the same for life. It's the creator who decides what's right and what's wrong. When it comes to life, it's the one who created it who decides what's truth, who decides what's right. And it was decided by God. Did you have a friend of yours who argues really loudly? And, they believe that whoever's the loudest wins. I mean, that was my philosophy when I was younger, and maybe it was yours at one point. But just because the voice is loud, it doesn't make it's right. It doesn't matter how loud the voice is. It doesn't matter how many people are saying it. It doesn't matter how foolish you feel. None of those things decides what truth is. Truth is decided by our Creator. This is what we read, is why we read the Bible. It's why we listen to it, because it is truth. Listen to what Jesus said. He's talking to the disciples, those who believed in him. And he says, if you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Solomon points out that there are ultimate consequences, though, even when we don't see them play out in our lifetime. A guy named Asaph wrote a psalm, and he was wrestling with the same dilemma. This is what he writes. This is what the wicked are like, always free of care. They go on amassing wealth. Surely in vain I have kept my heart pure and have washed my hands in innocence. When I tried to understand all this, it troubled me deeply until I entered the sanctuary of God. Then I understood their final destiny. He's observing, in this world, I see guys getting ahead. I see them doing the wrong thing, and it bugs me because why am I being innocent? I should just do it too. But he says, and then I contemplated and I saw their end, their ultimate end. The parallel that Solomon kind of is writing here in this area of scripture is he says, man knows that it's important to obey the king, the ruler in this world, because if not, it leads to punishment. And he's, how much more then should we remember that we serve a heavenly king, and that ultimately in the next life there are consequences. That's the parallel he's trying to draw. If you're wise and understand that here, then we should be wise and understand that with God. Well, we've all probably been in the same situation like I was in the gym, because everyone else was following the crowd. We just went along. But whatever is right will still remain right, no matter what else people are doing or what they get away with. Don't be fooled by what you see. It's always wiser to do right. Well, Solomon goes on. He says, when I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on the earth, even though one sees no sleep day or night, then I saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. For though a man labors to discover it, yet he will not find it. Moreover, though a wise man attempts to know it, he will not be able to find it. Solomon observes that even the wisest man cannot fully understand what God does. We don't totally know him completely. We don't know his plan completely. We're not even sure everything that he's doing here in this earth, in our lives. And this is not news, though, to you and me. We don't think that we know who God is. After all, he's God and we're not, right? But in this gap, our understanding sometimes becomes a stumbling block to obedience. So that's why I've written this next statement like this. You don't have to understand fully to obey immediately. We probably wouldn't say it that way, like, I have to know it, but we do. Just tell me, think about it. We say things more like this. Just tell me why, and then I'll do it. If you tell me why, then I'll do it. My friend went to visit his sister in the Middle East, and she and her husband and her kids, they were missionaries there in a country. And there it's illegal, by the way, to share your faith with someone. You can get arrested if you're caught talking to people about Jesus because they weren't supposed to convert someone from the Muslim religion. In fact, he couldn't even tell me what country they were in. But when he returned, he brought me a present. He brought me this cool sword that I got, okay? And it's pretty awesome. I can't even pull it all the way out right now, but he gave me this, and so I loved it, but I kept it in my closet for a while. And when I had my kids, they one day discovered that I had a sword in the closet. And I heard them talking one day, and my daughter Charlotte goes, "Papi has a sword, And I'm like, "Really? Yeah, that's to protect us." "Daddy, what did you done with your sword?" So then this started this whole series of stories that I would tell them of all my adventures of heroism that I did with my sword. And you know what? They believed every one of them. I wanted them to think that I would protect them. So I told them all these stories. I mean, kids are like that. They believe you almost everything that you say. When they're little, they just kind of accept what you say and they believe it. When I told them to do something, they didn't question whether they should do it. They just believed it. I mean, they didn't always do it, but they didn't necessarily question it. They accepted it to be true. Now they're beginning to get a little bit older. And my daughter Charlotte, she's knowing a little bit more about the world. And she's a little bit more skeptical at times. So when I tell her or ask her to do something, the question comes back, and you've probably heard this too, but why? Right? They want to know why before they do it. They want to know why before they apply. Every parent is familiar with this idea. Their kids have asked the same questions. Why do I have to eat that? Why do I have to brush my teeth every night before bed? Why do I have to go to school every day? Why do I have to just fill in the blank, right? They want to know why before they'll do it. And the truth is, you and I, we're not much different. If we don't know why God is telling us to do something, then we're not going to do it most of the time. We want to know why. There are many verses in the Bible that people don't apply to their lives simply because they don't see why God put it there. I mean, why can't I have sex before marriage? What's wrong with that? Why can't I, why should I give money to the church or to charity or a tenth of what God has given me? Why should I do these things? Because they don't necessarily make sense to me. I mean, if you can show me, if you can prove to me that it's important to my life, then I'll do it. It's possible, or is it possible, that maybe God has a reason that you and I don't fully understand? I mean, the truth is, many of those things can be explained. Maybe we just haven't gotten there in our journey yet to understand why God is doing those things. But sometimes we won't apply them until we're ready in life for that to happen. I remember when I was younger, I wouldn't date. I thought I didn't want to date a Christian, even though the Bible says do not be unequally yoked. And I thought, what's the point in that? That's not going to be any fun. They're not going to want to have fun with me. I mean, they're going to be a prude. They've got all these rules they want to keep, and I want to have fun. And so I didn't think I wanted to date somebody until I realized that this was the most important thing in my life. If God is the most important thing in my life, then I want to marry somebody who God is the most important thing in their life. Because if there's one thing I don't want to argue about is that. If we're going to go to church, how we're going to raise our kids, if we're going to give financially, all these things. And so there was a point in my life, I'm like, man, I realize now why God said that. And so sometimes, though, we don't always have to know it in order to apply it. The disciples are wondering at one point, who's the greatest? I don't know even how these two things match up, but they're wondering this. And then Jesus looks at them and he pulls this child from the crowd. And this is what he says. Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? They asked Jesus. And Jesus called a little child to him and set him in the midst of them and said, assuredly, I say to you, unless you are converted and become as a little child, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Little children just trust that you're right. My youngest, he's 3 years old. He trusts me that I'm right. They don't ask why. They don't wait till they believe that you're right. They just believe. They just decide, okay. We don't have to know why God has declared something to be right or wrong for it to be right in your life. Think about that for a minute. Maybe he has a different perspective. Because we do things for our kids because we love them. Because we want to care for them, because we want what's best for them. Actually, God never said to you, understand why. God says to you and me, just obey. That's all he says. He wants you to trust him. Solomon, writing the book of Proverbs, writes this, very profound. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Sometimes we focus so much on the path, and how can we make it straight? And if it makes sense to us to make it straight, that we focus on that. And God says, don't focus on the path. I'll make the path straight. You focus on leaning on me and not your own understanding. When my daughter was born, Gwendolyn, and all my children, I always had a prayer for each of them. And so there were those times you're just with your wife and her belly's sticking out, and maybe we'd laying on the bed or sitting on the couch watching TV. And from time to time, I would just lay my hand on her stomach and I would pray the same prayer, a different one for each of my children, but it was the same prayer for each one in particular. And for my daughter Gwendolyn, I would always pray this: God, please give her the wisdom to know what's right and the strength to do it. And the reason I prayed that is because I know the path of blessing comes from obedience to God. And I prayed that in advance so that her life would be marked by trusting God no matter what. Even when it seems hard, even when it seems difficult, and even when she doesn't understand. I want the best wishes for my daughter Gwendolyn. And God wants the same thing for you. God's prayer for you. He's the author of life. He knows what's best. And he wants the best for you. If you can learn to trust God, even when you don't understand why, you will find the life that you're looking for. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for everyone who's listening today. And God, it's always difficult for us to fully follow you. I mean, that's the walk the journey of faith that we're on. Learning to be fully obedient, to submit ourselves to you. Lord, there's a lot of times there are barriers of the unknown. I pray for each person that's struggling even now to, Lord, to not fully try to understand, but first be obedient. Understanding comes later. Lord, I just pray for them right now that you will do what you promise, and that is to make their path straight as they walk in obedience to you. Lord, thank you for your goodness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Hey, thank you for listening today. You can leave a comment below. Also, I'd love for you to hit subscribe, or to ring the bell, and so that you can always get our messages on YouTube and continue to watch us every week. I'll see you next week. I'll be here same time. God bless.